So to start off with, we'll start off with some basic questions. You obviously co-wrote this with someone else.
Hmm.
So I always like to talk about the writing process when it comes to film because I think people think um, writing for magazines and other things is very different than writing a film and a feature film at that. And so talk to me a bit about working collaboratively with someone else in lieu of doing it by yourself. And more importantly, I mean, it's a heck of an incredible film. How long did it take you to put
Thank
the
you.
script together?
About a year.
Oh, wow.
Um, it started out as a short film initially from Nick.
Okay.
So the once you're zoomed back into the current day in the hotel room,
Hmm.
that little scene was just supposed to be the short film that he came up with. I don't really write very short. I'm very long-winded. So he asked me to go over it and look at it. So I was looking at it and I was like, we can make it a little longer, a little longer.
Sure.
So next thing you know, it was 20 pages. And then I was like, maybe we should change, do this, this, and this. Next thing it was 60 pages. So then I was kind of going in a different way than he initially wanted to.
Hmm.
So I told him, I was like, you write your version, I'll write mine, and we'll kind of just meet in the middle somewhere, try to combine them and see what's what. So like I said, I write very long-winded. I came in with the script of about 140 pages, and his was like 65.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of had to just narrow it down. The final script is not what you saw.
Okay.
That was after just production issues. But the final script was about 91 pages.
Okay. Was the tone of the entire project always this dark, meaning between the both of you putting it together? Was it, you knew right from the get-go that it was going to be this sort of film?
No. It kind of just grew. So mine was always dark. It
Okay.
wasn't this dark. It was more of a familial movie between Chris, his mother, who was supposed to be alive,
Hmm.
but she wasn't shown in there, and the father, and there was a lot of scenes that we had to add on because we couldn't shoot that part of the movie
Okay.
for production reasons. So we kind of had to take more of his script and throw it in, which kind of gave you that uneven feeling. So it was kind of wanted to gear into the mental health, but didn't fully dive into it.
Okay. Now, if I read this correctly, it sounds as though you filmed everything in Long Island. Is that correct?
No, we filmed 3 days in Long Island.
Okay.
4 days in Long Island, 4 days in Brooklyn.
Okay. Now that's interesting to me because usually if I even say the words Long and Island, which is where we go for treatment, people are just running to the hills like nobody goes to Long Island. You go to all the other boroughs, but this Long Island place, no. So I think that's very cool that you picked Long Island. What was the appeal to using those locations in that area?
He's gonna kill me and say this. He was in charge of finding locations,
Uh-huh.
and he lives in Long Island,
Ah,
so he picked what was close to him.
that makes sense. Talk to me a bit about how you kept things cost efficient and more importantly, how you kept things on task. Because that's another thing that we have often challenges with, which is you have a set schedule or try to keep a set schedule. How do you get it from not being out of control with all that stuff going on?
All right, so the budget wise was just out of our pocket, so we kind of we had no choice but to keep it from getting out of control. So
Sure.
we made sure we had, I think, over 1,200 people audition, and we wound up just going with whoever was the most talented and fit in our budget.
Okay, that makes
And then
sense.
once we figured out who was going to play the lead, we kind of had to, since it was pretty much a family movie, we
Okay.
kind of had to get a family dynamic that they all kind of resembled each other and within our budget.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Now,
So
I'm
it's kind
sure,
of
I'm guessing
hard.
it's no, oh, I'm sorry. I'm guessing it's no surprise, of course, that you picked an excellent lead for a number of reasons, which we'll get into. But when you were auditioning him, is there one particular thing you remember that stood out most that was kind of the clincher, like, maybe we'll cast him, but this made us, that's it.
Yeah, we actually had a scene that wasn't in the movie as the audition.
Oh,
So it was I wrote it specifically for the audition. just so we can really see how well they can change moods like on a dime.
Okay.
So it was a very emotional scene that started out funny, went emotional, and then ended back with humor. And he was the only one that, out of all the men that auditioned, the only one that actually understood the tone of the scene.
Oh my gosh, really? One of the things I notice in the film is it's pretty painfully obvious that, you know, our lead character is not the greatest at singing Frankie Valli. So it was killing me to ask this question because I'm like, most actors are trained to do things very well. So do you have any idea if it was difficult for him to not do this well? Because believe it or not, I think there's an art to screwing something up. You know what I mean?
Yes, he actually gave us a hard time about it to begin with. That because he can sing, he can actually sing. If you can, towards the end, you can hear him. He was a lot better than he was,
Right.
and so he was actually able to sing. And he's like, I can't. So we basically just threw him up in front of a bunch of people, and we didn't tell him we were going to do it. We're like, sing badly,
Okay.
sing as bad as you possibly could. So we had everybody in the bar, like the bar was packed, and just sing. So that's what it was. We didn't rehearse it. We didn't do any of that. We just as bad as you possibly can.
Oh my God, that's so wild. Yeah.
And then we started having fun with it, which is where we got the outtakes from like Mustang Sally and a bunch of different other ones.
In the beginning, of course, we get an introduction into the mother and the father, and we kind of see where his roots come from. And so one of the women that stood out to me was his mother, believe it or not, although, you see her sporadically. I think she's a very strong character for the lead. I think she kind of instills in him certain things that we see as a grown man. So was it your intention with her? And this is a judge's question, actually. One of the judges was wondering, now, is it that it's strictly a mental health issue that she's suffering from? Is it just that she's literally just an overwhelmed, mother and wife, etc.? So we're trying to figure out what this character really is. So which is she, or is she a combination of both?
Well, she was a little bit of both, but she was mentally unstable, which kind of, we just filled that in from my long script, and which we had to cut out everything that explained all that.
Okay, I gotcha.
So a lot of my script was Frankie, going back to his mother, who is still in a mental institution, locked up. Sure. The little girl who played the daughter in the film, from the audition to shoot day, she grew like 4.5 inches. She went from a young little innocent girl to a young, a young woman.
Sure.
So it's like, all right, do we recast or do we just? So we just went forward.
There are certain people that will watch this that aren't in the industry, so I like to ask questions like this. So clearly you're using Frankie Valli music.
Yes.
So talk to me a bit about that, because some people automatically hear that and they're like, aren't they going to get in trouble? And what are the regulations with this sort of thing? So also, why Frankie Valli? Why not somebody else from that era? Just out of curiosity, I love Frankie Valli, but I'm like, why has it got to be Frankie Valli? Why can't it just be, Wayne Newton or something?
I'll answer your last question first.
Sure.
The kid Nick, who came up with the original concept, he used to go to school up in Massachusetts. So he would drive every day, well, not every day, every weekend back up to school to his frat that he was a part of. So on the thruway in New York, going upstate to Massachusetts, there's really no lights. There's really nothing up there.
Okay.
So he said he wasn't getting radio service. So all he was getting was like a Sirius XM station with doo-wop music.
Okay.
So one day coming back home, he had about a 90-minute Four Seasons marathon. And it just stuck in his head that, that little scene in the hotel room with Frankie Valli.
Sure.
And then, I happen to love all music. So I love the Four Seasons. And I thought maybe we could expand it a little bit. And that's how that became about. And as far as the music goes, we purchased the festival rights.
Oh, nice.
And then afterwards, when the company that owns his music saw the movie, they weren't very happy with it, especially the last scene.
Really?
So in order for us to move forward, we actually have to go back out and take out that last scene. So we have to kind of rescore it or figure it out.
Oh, goodness gracious. Now that's a surprise. I mean,
they didn't tell us no. They gave us a price that we can't afford.
Ah, got it.
So it was a polite,
Got it.
We got to figure it out at this point.
Oh, no kidding. Look at that. Well, my goodness, I'm sorry
Well,
about that.
starting
That's,
tomorrow, we got to figure it out because the
oh,
festival rights end on the 31st.
oh my God, you poor dear then. Oh, I'll be crossing my fingers for you. That's just awful. My goodness. Well, okay, let's turn over to looking at dad a little bit here. So clearly, we can see that this child has abandonment issues and grows up, and of course, this stays with him as well. I noticed that it's interesting that you chose to have him. Dad's the one he loves so much. Dad's the one he wants to impress, etc. And I wasn't sure if is that due to the fact that he's a musician, or the dad, or maybe in some ways that he sees some frailty in his mother that he doesn't see in his father.
It was actually just a dad issue. It really didn't have anything to do with the mom.
Okay.
Um, it was kind of it was more of, I mean, everybody does the mom, and I was very close to my mother, and I figured I didn't, wasn't very close to my father, didn't really know him too well.
Okay.
So I figured everybody does a mom. Let's work on the dad side because that's kind of overlooked a lot.
One actor I'd interviewed one time had to do a rape scene, and he had said to me very adamantly, I did not want to do this, over and over again. He's like, I did not want to do this. And sometimes actors, if they read something like in this case, did your actor have any apprehension about the obvious? I mean, what he's doing here is just, it's pretty heinous to think about. You know what I mean?
Not really. Not
Okay.
really. He wasn't. He was more concerned with the bad singing.
Ah, look at that. I'm going to do this horrid thing to this kid, but just make sure that singing's good. Oh my
goodness. It's one of those things that you're either going to appreciate the story version of it, or it's just going to completely turn you off.
Sure. No, I get
it. And I'm okay with either way.
Oh, gotcha.
That's what it was made for.
So as the creator, some of the feedback that I got from the various different judges was they were all questioning it. And this again is interpretation, I think, a lot of times, because every judge will interpret it differently. They were asking themselves, okay, is this man on a journey to just be seen by his father? Is he on a journey for Frankie Valli to see him? Is the problem here is that he's never really been seen, and he's using Frankie to be seen? That was kind of the consensus. So I'm like, well, let's just see. Are there multiple interpretations, or are you set on one?
The movie actually has absolutely nothing to do with Frankie Valli.
That's kind of what I figured.
He was more of like a, I guess you would call it like an avatar.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I do.
So he was just being used to get to the father because that was the father's pleasure in life.
Right.
Was Frankie Valli. So if this guy can get to the point where his father would see him on TV, hear him on the radio, etc., he would have his father back.
And that's a testament again to another well-made production, because you're able to take this intensely complex character and take him in all sorts of various different directions. You keep the audience's attention, despite the fact that it might be a turnoff, because not everybody likes the completely intensely dark. Moreover, you pick some of the best casting that there was. You did a whole heck of a lot with $30,000. And that was back in 2018. Now we're at 2021. So since the time you made it and now, how have things been? Meaning, what did you end up doing with the film? What sort of success did you get from it?
We went through a bunch of festivals. A lot of it was just the ending was, like I said, it's either people appreciate the story aspect of it,
sure,
or they dislike it because you killed a kid.
Oh, sure.
But it's mixed reactions, kind of, and it's pretty much just that. Like, nobody really has any issue with the production, the writing, any of that. It's just the ending that kind of, from when the first kid goes to the end, it's kind of a sprint of dark.
Oh, sure.
Like running with no lights on.
Oh, God.
And
no, I think it's dark even before that. I'm like, you don't even need to get to that point. I'm like, there's shades of dark like coming all through this whole thing. Yeah. So you just got to take the whole ride, in my personal opinion. How do you remember how many wins and nominations you got?
We won. We got nominated Best Editing a couple of times.
Okay.
The one lady said she wanted to create a Wildest Ride award just for our film.
Oh, look at That's
Uh,
cool.
we won Best New Directors twice and nominated for Best Actor and Actress 2 or 3 times.
Very cool. Nice. Very nice. Did you proceed forth to remind me, because this I did forget. Did you end up distributing it or?
Not yet. Well,
Okay.
we were going to, and then the whole music thing kind of,
Oh, that's right. So you got to straighten that
but they're
out.
waiting on us.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if we could do it. You know, it's not, I don't want to make it, I just don't want to put music there and it not really drive the point home.
I agree with you.
Like
Definitely.
unless it hits the same. I mean, there's so many avenues now to work with movies. It's, you know, we really shouldn't just wait on one.
Sure.
So,
I get it. I understand. Now, if I were to ask you what's coming up for Pat Bradley in the future, what do you got going on film wise or otherwise?
we have a lot going on actually. We just completed a short. I literally just finished it last week.
Oh, wow.
We finished the sound, everything like fully complete last week.
Okay.
We're shooting. I have 4 shorts of my own in the next December, February, March, in the next 3 months.
Okay.
We had a feature last year, which is really strong. It's another family drama, but it's not as dark. So it's about a man who suffers from dementia, and it's basically about how dementia affects everybody in the family.
Mhm.
So it's a drama, but there's some new supernatural horror elements to it, which kind of taken in a different turn than your normal family dementia type of movie.
Okay.
We actually had funding for it last year, and the financier was a local New York City businessman, and he wound up passing away from COVID.
Oh, goodness.
So his son took over his business, and his son didn't have the same feeling about the film that his father did.
Okay.
And after meeting with the father and talking to him for a long time, because we began casting, like we were already into the casting process.
Okay.
So the son wound up just, I didn't want to deal with the whole court, and out of respect to the father, I gave the son the money back.
Okay.
So he let us keep what we spent because it was already spent, but we
Right.
wound up giving the money back to the guy, well, the guy's family.
Okay.
And we're just looking for, starting to look for refunding after that. So that's why I try to keep busy with the shorts.
That makes sense.
So I'm trying
It
to
does.
just stay busy with that until we can secure more funding for this one.
Gotcha. Now, if people want to seek you out on social media or otherwise, what's the best place to find you?
Don't seek me out on social media. I just post pictures of my dogs. But
He's like, don't look me up. Don't.
it's always right, like WRITE,
Okay.
Pat, at every social media except TikTok, because I cannot dance.
Ah. What a very honest guy you are. Well, let me just say this much. I have to tell you that of all the judges and people that took a look at the film for me, because usually I try to stay hands off with people I've met or spoke to, etc. Just delightful. I mean, even with the darkness that comes and goes, there's just so many elements about this film that are done right. And I mean that 150%.
Thank
It
you.
automatically should have distribution on the merit of the fact that you've done so very much with so very little. You know what I mean? It's just, it was a wonderful project. I'm so blessed that you came across and sent it to me.
Thank you for having us.
It's been absolutely wonderful. And if you get to talk to your lead actor, tell him job well done. Hell of a good job. Absolutely.
I will.